All right, so good evening, ladies. Whee! Yay! So this is officially our first ever all-female event. So I'm very happy to see so many women that are interested in entrepreneurship and tech and innovation, because I guess we all know and we all feel that we kind of need to connect more, that we kind of need to learn more from each other and build stronger networks. So welcome to our open lecture. My name is Maria. I'm one of the managing directors of GERMANTECH. GERMANTECH is a company that offers services around innovation. So we're doing all kinds of services. We're doing educational formats. We're doing entrepreneurship programs for large corporations. We're doing company building. And we're also doing a lot of stuff to bring people together. Hi! It's no longer all female. Welcome. And as part of this ecosystem building events, we do our World Changes in Tech open lectures, where we invite entrepreneurs to talk about their path into entrepreneurship, to share their experiences, to share their learnings, and also to inspire all of us to maybe found our next startup or join a startup or make our own startup better, whatever it is. And for this reason, I'm very happy that tonight Maxie is with us. So Maxie and I, we know each other since a decade, which is crazy, because a decade in tech life is like a lot of lives, a lot of startups that we had during that time. And yeah, I met Maxie in the Social Impact Lab, which I was leading in 2012. And Maxie founded her first startup back then that she will tell us a little bit about in a second. And ever since, I watched you, and it is like coincidence that in 2022 we are sitting in the same co-working space again, and our paths crossed again. And that we're here. Hi. No. And that, and that you will share your story with us tonight. So the format is that Maxie will talk a little bit and explain, and afterwards there's of course room for questions, answers, and everything you want to know, anything you want to discuss also with each other. Let's make it a nice evening. All right.
Thank you so much, Maria. Thanks for the invitation. Welcome, everyone. My name is Maxie, and I'm super excited to share with you today my story, my entrepreneurial life story. And as you see in the title, it is about failing and starting over again. And I would like you to think about what success is for you. Because if you fail, you automatically think about success and failures. So bear that in mind, because we will at the end of this talk discuss a little bit about success, what it means to you personally, what is failing, what is success. So my entrepreneurial story begins with this little gadget. I think by now everybody almost knows what this is. It's a menstrual cup, and it's an alternative product to a tampon. This product exists already for over 30 years, but I was introduced to this product by my sister in Copenhagen, where I studied, in 2011. And she was like, Maxie, you really have to try this product. It's amazing. I was like, oh no, please get away from me. She was like, please, all of my friends, and she was studying medicine by then, everybody in my study program is using it. And don't worry, because she was studying to be a medical doctor. If you cannot get it out, I'll get it out for you. So I was like, okay, I'll try this. And honestly, I was so hooked from day one. And yeah, so I became a menstrual cup user. This is wrong. I told you briefly before, I was studying at the Copenhagen Business School. I can highly recommend this business school to everybody who is still studying or wants to do an MBA. They are very forward-thinking. And I was studying business, language, and culture as my bachelor's. and did a master in business and politics. And I came across a study by the United Nations that showed that 1 out of 10 girls in Africa did not attend school due to their menstruation. So the very natural fact of having a period was preventing girls from attending school because of economical reasons. They were unable, or they are still today, unable to afford sanitary pads or tampons. And I was very, very shocked to read that fact. And to exemplify this is Annette Shilao, who I met later in Kenya. She's 14 years old. Her dad is the only parent available still. Her mom died of HIV/AIDS. So the average age also in Kenya is 16 years old. It's very interesting. There's an entire population who just died. In Germany, we are 45, I think, in average. But she always had to ask her father to buy her, to get her or give her money to buying sanitary towels. And it's of course also a topic that is surrounded by huge taboos. So it's hard for her to ask, but also money is short, and not every month they had enough money. So what is Annette using? This is bark from trees, which they dry, or old cloth is sometimes being used as an alternative, or sometimes nothing. And that is the reason why girls don't attend school, because they are ashamed. And they also lack the education, of course. So they are ashamed of bleeding. And when I read about girls like Annette Shilao, and was a cup user myself, at some point, I was waking up in the shower and I was like, wait a minute. We have a product here that is starting to gain popularity, that is lasting for 10 years. It's reusable, it's environmentally friendly, and because it's reusable, it's super cost saving. You invest once, but then you never have to spend any money again for the next 10 years. So for me, it was a no-brainer to introduce the concept of a menstrual cup to a new market, to a developmental context. And that was, in our case, we started out in Kenya, and the idea was to found a business model that is based on direct sales, women-to-women sales, because we thought by then it makes so much more sense if a woman who is a cup user herself introduces it to other users, to other women, because she knows how it works, there's a room of intimacy, and of course we wanted to also create employment at the same time. These direct sales models are super huge in Africa, in India, in Pakistan. You have Unilever, the big company. They are basing their entire strategies in developing countries on direct sales. So it's a very successful business model, and we wanted to do the same. This is me in Kenya. We flew down to test the feasibility. Is there a market? Do women want this product? And everywhere we went, women were asking us, where and how can I get the product? So it was clear that the demand was there. Plus we had found a study that was conducting the feasibility, so the uptake of a menstrual cup in Kenya, in Nairobi, and that was 98% positive findings. So yeah, we packed all our bags. I was still a student at the Copenhagen Business School by then, and flew to Kenya. And as you see here, we were working in the slum. This is Kibera, one of the biggest informal settlements in Africa and Kenya. And we were starting, besides managing production, importing the cups, we were educating women in becoming Ruby Cup saleswomen. So this is Sarah. So she has a formal sales ID, she has a menstrual cup, a Ruby Cup in her hand, and she has a little pamphlet, little leaflet, where she can show this is how you use it, these are the benefits. And so we were testing the sales model. You can see her trying to convince a woman to use the Ruby Cup. And the feedback, I mean, this is now maybe a little bit too much, but it was very, very, very positive. So this is where we were working together with the Golden Girls Foundation, which is in northern Kenya, in Kisumu. And Golda actually contacted us. She's like a superpower woman lady. She was like, I heard about this weird thing that you're bringing to Kenya. Can I try it? And then so we sent the menstrual cup with a matatu bus to northern Kenya. She tried it. She was like, I need this for all of my girls. So she was running this foundation, and where they were supporting girls in different school settings. And we just did mass educations. You know, this is like our employee Edna and also Sarah, and they were just in schools educating about the use of menstrual cup and the female body. We also did some road trips and road shows where we were renting big trucks and driving through the slums, and we were piggybacking on different NGOs. I think this was maybe also the UN who did like a sexual education campaign, and we were allowed to be part of this. So Ruby Cup was everywhere, and you also saw it on the street signs when you were driving with your cars. We managed to be in the supermarket, in the biggest local supermarket chain called Uchumi. And this is just to show you how popular it was by then. So the press loved us. We were covered by almost every single newspaper across the world. And we were partnering with the Ugandan Red Cross, with the UNHCR, with the Kenyan Ministry of Health, and won many prizes. For example, the Global Social Entrepreneurship competition in the US. In Uganda, we won a competition. In Denmark, in Germany. So you can see, very glamorous. However, we failed. The question is why? Like, we did our marketing pretty well. We were all business school students. We knew our shit, basically. So why do we fail to introduce a product with such a great demand into a new market, where also other products? I mean, Kenya is it's a growing economy. There's so many businesses who strive and succeed. Why do we have to fail? And I actually started to write my master thesis then about this, and what I found out, it's very expensive to be poor. So you are poor, but everything you buy is expensive. And we know that from ourselves. If I'm a student, I might be buying a daily U-Bahn ticket, which is more costly than a monthly ticket, just because I'm lacking the cash flow to invest 80 euros in a monthly ticket. Or in jeans that might be cheaper but break easily. You're not able to invest anything, and that makes life very, very expensive. And in the case of Ruby Cup, it meant that girls and women were buying not a pack of pads, which was $3, Ruby Cup was $5. So you can see it's a huge cost saving to invest in a Ruby Cup that lasts you 10 years versus a pack of pads that lasts you a month. They were buying single pads a day. And the single pad is, of course, much more expensive than the pack and the Ruby Cup. But because of the lack of cash flow, you are really, and that is also the definition of poverty, is not the lack of money, but the instability. You don't know if you have money tomorrow. So they were really just consuming from day to day, one cigarette instead of a pack, for example. So life is expensive if you don't have any money. Then we had low price points. I just mentioned briefly, we were also listed in one of the biggest supermarket chains in Kenya, but the general price points were around $13. And if you compare it to cup prices here, that you mainly sell via the internet, it's around 25 or 28 euros. So we would have had to establish such a huge mass, sell so many products to become financially sustainable, and that was not possible. And the longevity of the product, it's a sad fact, but durable, sustainable products, you sell them once. So the sales ladies that were selling a Ruby Cup, they did a huge educational effort in order to sell one product that they weren't able to sell again and again. So a lot of effort for little money coming in. Instead of you are educating a customer to use tampons, and then you can sell the tampons from month to month, again to the same customer. So you have the cost of education only once. So that were the reasons, and we were facing the situation, should we close down the company, should we continue? And then we were actually stumbling across a a business model called Buy One, Give One by Tom's Shoes, which is a huge shoe company. And we were seeing all these shoe piles in the schools where we also worked at, in the director's office. Big, I just remember this image, just a pile of shoes lying there next to the director. And they were doing the Buy One, Give One strategy. And we decided to do so, although we actually liked the fact that we wanted to create business and not just donate. But we were facing the situation if we wanted to give access to the product or just leave it. So we said that we would value education more than just this idea of creating sustainable business and not donating. So we decided to come to Europe and to have a Buy One, Give One. And I happened to end up in the Social Impact Lab, where I met this lovely lady, Maria. Exactly. And by then, I think we had burned, I don't really remember, but I think between 300 and 500K with a business model that did not work out. So we really had to raise money. And by then, crowdfunding became en vogue. So we started a crowdfunding campaign. Does not work. And managed to raise $40,000, which by then was pretty big. Crowdfunding was not that well established. And I was running around Berlin with a crown of menstrual cups to signal that it means brain power for girls. And every day I was talking to people on the streets. It was extremely exciting and extremely exhausting. But we managed to bring people like Ursula Carven, who is like an actress on board, Kenyan marathon runners. They were all supporting Ruby Cup. And in the end, we managed to actually produce 5,000 more cups with the amount of money raised. I think. And sales were growing and growing and growing. Everything was going well until the big fall came. We crashed. Or actually, I crashed. I was on vacation in Mallorca, and I received a phone call from my co-founder, who was the CFO. And she was like, the Danish finance ministry is dissolving our company. They are taking over. I was like, what? How is that possible? Yeah, we are too late to file for our annual reports. And I mean, in Germany, I think we now have the yearly report of 2020 ready, or 2021. So you always have like 1 or 2 years to hand it in. Denmark, I think nobody of us knew, is extremely strict. So they were like, no, we have to break the company apart. And because we had received a loan from investors, it meant that the investors had to be paid out first. That's the first priority, which meant they were taking over the company. So from day one, after all these years of so much hard work and so much joy, but also very hard work, I had lost my company. And at that time, I remember I felt like a horse that was in front of a wagon and there were only brakes on. So I had to like fight, and it was so hard. And then we had to negotiate to get our shares back. But after 1 year, it still did not materialize. And I was like, okay, I'm creating value, and we are growing and growing for this company. And I don't have any security if I get shares any day. And I don't know if any of you is a founder yourself, but founders usually don't pay themselves a high salary. So I was still living on a very small salary, having no shares, and working my ass off to make this business a success. So I actually decided to resign. I was like, oh, I can't do this anymore. And I quit. I said to my co-founder, I'm so sorry, it doesn't feel right anymore to continue working for this company. And I felt devastated. It was the most difficult time in my life so far. And it was crazy because at the same time I was winning prizes and prizes and prizes. So this was me at the Victress Awards for leading role models in Germany. So I felt so devastated and traumatized inside, and at the same time I was the celebrated star. So that was just a huge conflict and very, very difficult. And I remember that year I didn't know, who am I? What are my skills? What can I work? I was so lost in space. I was like, I came straight out of university to found my own company, but I had no idea what my skills were, because as a founder, you just do everything. So I applied as a sales manager for a glossy box company. It's like, doesn't interest me at all. I was so lost in space. And applied, of course, for Arbeitslosengeld 1 or 2, like the state aid that you get. And I was just like somehow sliding through life, trying to get on top of things. And then at some point I started to sit down with my parents. I remember this was a Christmas Eve. It's like, I learned so much. I founded a successful company. I managed to create sales and grow and e-commerce, SEO, all these tools and things that you learn as a founder. I cannot just go back and be an employee. I think my skill set is too broad, and I just don't want to waste what I've learned and built myself. So I decided actually to start a new company again. And that is the company that I'm running to this date. It's called Femna, and it's a platform for female health. And why female health? I was able to draw on the learnings that I received in my time as the founder of RubyCup, because every day we were receiving health-related questions, like, why do I get cramps? Why, or can I use RubyCup when I have a heavy period? And do you know what I could do against heavy bleeding? What can I do when I have PMS? And I was wondering why women were asking a menstrual cup company health-related questions. In my mind, this was not related at all. So I started to look deeper into the issue, and I found women were not receiving answers in the offline world. And second, people started to ask the internet. We had one article that was called Blood Clots During My Period that had 40,000 visits a month. Because people were wondering, what can I do? Is this normal? So many questions. So people started to ask the internet for answers. So this is offline world. And I started digging deeper and deeper, and I found this number. It's in 7 minutes. That's the average consultation time at the doctors in Germany. In Sweden, it's 20. And you have to imagine at the gyno or at the female health-related doctors, you have to undress and dress. So there's very little time. You undress, sit on the stool, blah, 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 and you're being sent out again. But especially for family planning and female health, you need a lot of time to be able to ask questions and to be educated. So I found female health is a completely neglected topic in research. At the moment, we are trying to find professionals that can give lectures or tell us what's the new state of research, PMS, PCOS, and there's none. It's super neglected in research. Plus, the studies conducted are all on men, and this starts with male mice because it's cheaper, because male mice don't have hormonal fluctuations. So the entire female health topic is under-researched, and also the medications that we receive is often not made for the female body. And these are just a few numbers. We just, because we are going to work with insurance companies now, it's a big market, but it's also a lot of women suffering from these things. And then it's astonishing to see that there's so little research going into this. So 12.5 million suffer from PMS, 80% have period pain, 20% severe, and nobody knows why. And just, this is my sister. She was 14 years old. Now this picture is older. She is also a PhD student now, but when she was 14, I'm allowed to tell this story, my mom went to the gyno with her because she had such heavy cramps and so heavy bleeding, and she was put on the pill. And that's completely normal, and because there's so much ignorance what to do for these issues, the only solution is the pill, the pill, the pill, and the pill, especially for very young women, has enormous side effects, as we know. 70% of all women do not want to take synthetic drugs. So I was seeing a big market potential there and started to build a company that was offering products as an alternative to the pill. So you can see here PMS for heavy bleeding, a tea, and this was all developed throughout a year's time with different experts that were specialized in natural medicine. But I can tell you, this does not work. That failed. So that business model failed, and I felt like a failure. And yeah, so you ask yourself again, why do I have to fail again? And we failed because of the health claims regulations in Germany. You are basically not allowed to say anything. So all our teas were just tea for women. So we were not allowed to say this tea is supporting you when you have period cramps. It's very strict. So in the end, our investor asked us, so how do you want to actually sell your products if you cannot say what they are used for and good for? And I was like, yeah, you're right. I think this is a business made for failure. And we also had crazy production chaos. Do not do anything with herbs. It's a nightmare. Sometimes they don't grow, then they are not available, and we also wanted everything in organic quality, very difficult. And at the same time, I did not learn my lessons to low price points. So you have to reach many, many, many women if you sell teas and oils for around 9 or 20 euros. So this is why Femna failed. But as you know me, I like to pivot, and we pivoted again, and this time to online therapeutics, because we still knew that women had these questions and they didn't find the answers. So we said, okay, what's our number one priority? Health education. And what we do today is we offer telemedicine, like online health consultations. And then it turned out, later on, we developed home diagnostics, because we found out that it's much better to actually consult medically if you know the reasons why. For example, if a woman has PMS, it makes sense to know her hormonal level. So we launched hormone tests. We also have thyroid tests. We now have a pretty broad product portfolio of urine tests, STI tests with vaginal swabs. So everything that women can do it from home. And I recently learned, I think in Israel, it's completely normal. Every pregnant woman gets tests sent to her home. She does them herself, sends them in, especially during Corona. I think the entire Israeli government was just saying, okay, women, stay away from the hospitals. We'll just send you all the tests. You can conduct them from home. And this is what we did in 2019, where we switched to this business model. And by then, I think that is also an advantage of having lived abroad and being a little bit internationally minded. Coming from Denmark, telemedicine was like the norm 5 years ago. In Germany, we weren't allowed to do so. So we had to do online consultations. No treatments, completely forbidden. So we did online health education for a long time until Corona came. And then all of a sudden, everybody knew how to use Zoom, and everybody was afraid to get infections at the doctor's office. So we grew by 500% during Corona. This is just an example of the home test. And to date, we are treating different kind of topics. So hormones is our biggest one. We have, if a woman struggles getting pregnant, period, gut health, PMS, endometriosis. We are treating a variety of female health issues, and I just wanted to read this quote to you because I think she beautifully describes what we wanted to build with Femna. She says, "Femna is a place many women were looking for. I'm very happy to have found this place, and it gave me answers to my very individual health questions about women's health. Thank you for the opportunity to take the diagnostic test easily from home and for the great professional as well as personal advice afterwards." So she liked the convenience and also the fact that she was actually given a lot of time to be heard. And that's the most common feedback we receive is, finally somebody listened. Today we have treated 30,000 patients. We receive amazing reviews and we doubled our customer base. And this year we managed to receive a lot of investment, and we became the winner of the pitch event of the Business Angel Network Germany. And with the money raised, we are actually now building a long-term health program where we are supporting a woman that goes through health education and treatment for a period of 6 months. So we really try to have a holistic approach and be there for the woman, because you cannot cure things just from one night to the other. And at Ruby Cup I felt it was always a struggle internally due to the structures. Everybody, the team was scattered. You remember the image of the horse. Femna is by no means as glamorous to the outside, but internally this feels right. And you see the team. These are some of our consultants. And I feel I've come to the right space and place. And this is our goal. We want to facilitate access to Femna through insurance companies, and I think are well on track. So what are the learnings? Before I share my learnings, I want to come back to this initial question of what is success? Because obviously you've learned how many times I failed. I've asked myself, am I a complete failure? Am I a success? What does success mean for you? So maybe we can take just 1 minute to just think about it and share it and then discuss, and then I'll continue with my learnings. Or maybe you have any ideas. What does success mean to you? It can be private. I think at some point, everybody at some point stops and says, am I on the right track? Has my life gone the way that I imagined it would go?
I think success is doing what you want from heart. Like, it's kind of, you don't think with your mind, it's like you're leaded by your heart, it's not rational. So if you're doing something in this direction, I think you're successful. And if you fail, you don't have to regret anything.
Because then it's more like a learning.
Yeah.
If you do what you love, basically.
Yeah.
Well, a little bit follow up what she said, but I think before getting there, unfortunately, because I would also say a little bit seeing like the women in different kind of workspaces and so on. A lot of times you a bit notice, and I went through that because I also done my share of failure. But I think before getting to that point, you have to realize that actually a lot of women look at success in the eyes of others. I have to be CEO, I have to be this, I have to be this, and then you put such a pressure on you. But the time you realize, I define my success, I don't give a shit about anybody else, and then I find it myself, then it can be actually anything. Some people are actually happy with a daily job, and that is their success, and somebody wants to reach up there, that's their access. But I think it's the moment where you don't give a shit about others, what your mom think, what your family think, what your...
And that's so interesting because it draws a little bit on the experience that I had. So being a celebrated entrepreneur, but feeling so lost and so sad inside, then it doesn't coincide. And especially during the times of social media, I find it so important that we are not just like looking for what's the external, but really trying to see what does it mean for me? How am I on the right track, no matter what other people say, right? Yeah.
But just to build on that, I just thought it was interesting that you call it a failure when, for me, from a social perspective, the Ruby Cup was a massive success in terms of the impact that you had on those women in Kenya, and I feel like maybe it was a failure in business terms, but I don't think all in all it was a failure. So I feel like it's defined by what people think success is, but I don't know, you know what I mean? For the world,
interesting point.
For the world, I really don't think that was a failure, and you made a difference at a certain level.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, in the end, everything is a learning experience. I was saying failure, I think, pretty deliberately, just to have a standpoint. But of course, in that moment, it felt like a personal failure. And I'm sometimes thinking of a female entrepreneur that you might also know, that you know her, Milena Glimbowski, and she founded Original Unverpackt, which is shops without packaging. They recently had to file for insolvency, and it maybe depends on how she would look at her business, because she definitely probably sparked like this crazy discussion in Germany that we are just using way too much plastics. I think many big chains also started using plastic-free packaging, basically, or their vegetables and fruits were no longer packed in plastic. So the societal change that she was sparking, but she had to file insolvency due to Corona. So it's true. It depends on also how you define it and how you measure it, right? Yeah.
For me, success is also like a super vivid concept that really depends on the time and the context, right? So in one phase of my life, success could be related to creating like a multi-million company, but in 2 years it could also be creating like a family or having a partner that loves and cherishes you, or spending more time with your loved ones, right? So I think it's also like really varies according to the stage of your life that you're in. So I think it's changing, right?
Yeah.
What success meant for you yesterday doesn't need to be success for you today.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, I would just say, I think from everything that you guys said, it kind of brings to mind purpose and value, basically. So if you have your values right, you follow those values, that's your purpose. If you're aligned with what your life, how you lead your life with your values, essentially that's already a success, I think. And that kind of, what you said, it could be in different areas of your life. Family could be a value. Business, being successful in business could be a value, which was maybe the case for you. That particular business didn't work for you anymore, therefore you could consider that a failure, but actually in other sense it still was a success, right? So it's kind of simultaneously happening.
Maybe these two can coexist next to each other, right? Yeah, so maybe just to share you my learnings, that's very quick, and then I'm done. So I definitely found out that startup life is not like that. It's not linear. It's not a ladder that just goes up to the sky. I think there's rare cases where that actually happens. For me, it's more like a spaghetti bowl. It's like an intertangling of events and things, and it's definitely not linear. And when I think about, I talked to my parents about this because we were just like, what does success actually mean for you, Mom, and for you, Dad? And they all have different definitions of it. And then my mom actually said, it's maybe where you put your spotlight. So you see my successes and my failures in life. And it's maybe my choice if I want to put my spotlight on my failures or if I want to put my spotlight on my successes, because life is rich and I had both. And so maybe, and it probably depends on how you feel each different day, but it's maybe a definition of where you choose, what you choose to focus on if you look at your life and start to wonder, am I where I want to be? And did I live my life the way I imagined it to live? So I think that was like a little bit my conclusion at the end, that it's a little bit up to you how you define your success or whether or not you feel successful. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. I think there are a lot of questions, or I have the feeling that, so I just give the stage to you first.
Yeah, if you have any questions also about the business, not just about this question of success, please.
Yes. There's nothing else for now. Just in the chronological, maybe the sequence. You were talking about menstrual poverty, essentially in Africa. I wonder if you're aware of the kind of any research done on that within developed countries, if we like to call it like that, because we know it exists. I just wondered if you know where to look.
Anecdotal evidence. Yeah, I know it's a huge problem for women who are homeless. It's a problem in the US, I heard, that a lot of girls say they struggle to afford pads and tampons. And I think there's also some countries who are now starting to provide free pads and tampons in schools. And that is, of course, a result of the fact that it exists. I would not know the numbers. The UN in Kenya, for example, maybe it's easier to conduct those studies, but they really found out that 1 out of 10 girls were lacking school. Yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for being such a role model. I think this whole female entrepreneurship topic is like coming now more and more and more. But I think back when you started your business, I think there were barely any kind of role models. So super cool, especially because I also studied IBP in Copenhagen, and then there were actually no female founders at all, right, in our bubble. So thanks for being here. I would like to know what your source of energy is, because founding a business, especially in like a female area where you also don't get a lot of VC money because it's men, right, making investment decisions, often not relating to female topics. What is your source of energy, and how do you achieve to be so resilient for the past years?
Probably 3 main things. One is I find the environment in Berlin is very supportive. Just, for example, to be invited to this event by Maria, to be part of the Impact Lab. I'm always saying Impact Hub, the Impact Lab. The availability of mentors. I think Berlin helps. I think the second one is family support. My parents are actually supporting me also mentally, my sisters. We have a pretty strong family, Zusammenhalt, like we bond with my partner as well. And the other one is I actually try to stay healthy. So I go jogging quite often, and in summer I go swimming in the morning. And that somehow creates a good balance between sitting in front of the computer and but I feel very, very unfit at times and very tired. Especially, I have twins, and they're 4 years old. And when one is sick, then it's like, oh, how am I going to manage? But yeah, I think these 3 main factors.
I would love to know a little bit about your approach with speaking with insurers and regulatory. I come from the US, obviously, from my accent, and when I moved here, I was shocked at how little you could do from home. There's no such thing as personalized medicine. There's no such thing as one medicine. You sit at a doctor's office for 3 hours even though you have an appointment. Like, I'd love to know a little bit about how those conversations go, because it just doesn't exist, that infrastructure for convenience-based health.
It's I don't know, the German health system definitely has big flaws. And yeah, we are talking to health insurance companies to get Femna covered. At the moment, unfortunately, it's somehow reserved for women who can afford it. I think that's a shame. I know my sister, she is a doctor and she used to work in Denmark, and what a doctor does in Germany is done by a nurse in Denmark. So she has 2 masters and a doctor, and every Monday she has to go around to her patients and she has to take blood. I mean, an intern can take blood. She's like, I'm wasting all my studies, what I've learned. So the organization, I think, of who does what in Germany is besides the fact that we are lacking, we'll be lacking doctors, it's just poorly organized. And I think she told me it's because we are trying to save a lot of money, and the first people who get fired are Pflegekräfte, like the ones who staff at the hospital. And then the nurses start to do their jobs. And once the nurses get fired, the doctors have to take on their jobs. So it's a bit of the consequence of having saved too much in the system, that doctors now are doing tasks that they shouldn't be doing. Yeah, I don't know. That probably didn't answer your question, but I don't know. It's not so easy. And also digitalization in Germany is a complete joke, to be honest. Like when I lived in Kenya, 2011, I was in the middle of the desert and I could send money to buy something just at the local market, like mobile payments. That was already established in 2011. Everywhere was mobile coverage. And when I'm now commuting between northern Germany and Berlin, I have 2 hours in the train with a 0 internet connection. It's like, so I think there's still a long way to go, not only in the healthcare system, but yeah, we have Femna now.
I have another question because, well, I agree with the digitalization. I'm brought up in Sweden, and I used online banking 20 years ago, and now I think I've done it like here in the past 3 years, but anyway. I just finished my UX design studies and I focused on actually e-health, and how do you see that being already in the market, or at least trying to interpret it? Because I find it very interesting, but how do you see personal development in the field? I mean, there are obviously a lot of like this general sport apps and so on, but deep diving really into the healthcare and different kind of, how do you see that?
So just 2 days ago, my sister, I talk a lot about my family. My little sister that you saw in the photo, she's pregnant now. And she told me an app that she was given, so she lives in Denmark. And every pregnant woman is giving an app. What happens in week 1, week 2, week 3? What happens if you are a rainbow couple? What if you are in doubt? What should you get checked? And the UX is so amazing of that app. And I was like, why doesn't every single woman in Germany gets it? It's again, unfortunately, private companies who take the job. So we have Kalea, we have Kinderhelden, for example. But it's, again, you have to pay for it privately. It should be given out by the state, I find. As well as Femna, it shouldn't be a private service. But due to the lack of, I don't know, innovation, I guess, that's where we are at the moment.
But do you see any like sort of policy changes soon?
Yeah. We have DiGAs, digitale Gesundheitsanwendung, and slowly by slowly, the health insurance companies are covering it.
Usually the topic of FemTech is also, or kind of building a business in this space comes with making some behavioral change or societal change, and you had to do it with Ruby Cup, as far as understood in Kenya, a lot, and it worked, seems to me, amazingly. Can you speak a little bit about kind of what was the secret behind that, and also with Femna, do you see that you need to do any behavioral or societal change work to kind of further develop?
That's a big question. I think there's advantages. So we were definitely the first mover. in Kenya, and also the first mover in Germany. And in business school, where I studied, you learn about the first mover's advantage. But there's also the second mover's advantage. So I think in the case of Ruby Cup, there were companies that came and introduced cups later, and we had done all the education. So just to give you an example, when I introduced Ruby Cup to the German market, some newspapers and radio stations rejected me coming and talking about it because it was still such a taboo. And to date, I would argue, I don't know if you agree, today having a period company is super sexy. So it's like the entire discussion around the topic of menstruation, we always said, let's start the conversation about menstruation, let's break the bloody taboo. And yeah, I think we managed to do that. But that's great, that's inducing societal change, and I definitely would value that as a huge success.
Yeah. You mentioned there's a lack of research in women health. Do you do anything for it so there's no lack anymore?
We would love to, and we are at the moment also having an employee who came from the Charité, and she was writing her PhD about endometriosis. And part of the Femna Care program is to invite different researchers to just talk about what are the latest research findings. We have a lot of data in our company, a lot. We have the hormonal test results, we have the gut test results, we have the blood test results, we have so much data, and we could technically combine that with the pain a woman has. And then at some point you could actually really start to find correlations. We tried to get in touch with some professors. For example, at the Charité, they are big in gender studies by now, and it's just so slow, and you need to apply for funding. I think we would have to employ a person that would just manage that. Then I also had the feeling they wouldn't know what to use out. It was, yeah, we tried, and it's like, come on guys, we have so much data because we are a digital company. Please use it for something. And that has not been that easy so far. So yeah, if any of you has some contacts or... okay, yeah. We should definitely talk then.
I'm myself a student at business in a different country. What advice would you give yourself as a business student in a different country to stop doubting yourself so much about what you want to do, and to make it a little bit not easier, but because I understand that nothing that's great comes easy, but an advice.
So you're having doubts with your study program?
Not necessarily, but with what I'm passionate about more. I understand my strengths as much as I can.
So when I studied at CBS, that's also why I'm highly recommending this university, they had social entrepreneurship as a main course. And I found that interest because I found myself loving to read papers about business ethics and social responsibility and the role of the firm and the company in a global context, and the idea of companies being able to do well and to actually be socially responsible. And so I think that naturally my path just led me towards becoming a social entrepreneur, because I was interested in how to do business differently and how to actually induce societal change, not through working for an NGO or for big corporations, but doing that through your own little company. Yeah. So interest in papers, and I think also sometimes we are a little bit too hard on ourselves. I think you don't always have to know it now. I think it will come. You'll find it.
Thank you.
Hi. Can you maybe share something about the failing and starting over and the pivoting? Can you maybe share something about the team? Because you mentioned on the second last picture that you really feel like centered and home in your team now. who did you pick? How did you pick them? And what changed too back in the days?
At Femna, funnily enough, it feels like I don't even have to recruit, but the people who fit, they just come to us naturally. It's so funny, but just recently we were looking for a product manager, and one day later we received an application about a person who wanted to fill the job as a product manager. The main difference is I'm working alone now as the founder of Femna. That definitely is easier than being a co-founder, which I was at Ruby Cup. And I think now, looking back, the very best possible thing would be to have a functional, well-functioning co-founder team. But the worst that can happen to a business is a dysfunctional co-founder team. So now, me being the sole founder of Femna, I would say is the second best solution. And I'm a little bit regretting, if we are talking about regrets, that I didn't have enough mood. I wasn't trusting myself enough that I was able to found a company myself, because in the investment scene, it says that investors invest in teams. So as a single founder, it's very difficult to get money. So I thought I would need a co-founder. And frankly speaking, I used to have a co-founder at Femna, but it was so difficult. And I hope it's not because I'm difficult. No, there was actually something about like illegal things happening and money being stolen. So I've gone through so much co-founder struggles that today I think I would probably start and found, if I would found a third company, I would do that by myself again. And then you can choose experts for the positions that you want to fill. And yeah, that just works out for me. And for me, it was also so helpful that I found a company called Maven Clinic. They are a US-based female health company. They have served over 3 million women. I think they just raised, I don't know, 150 million. They're just really skyrocketing. And she is a single female founder. And she manages this just by herself and, of course, with an amazing team. And just seeing examples of how that is possible. Of course, sometimes I'm missing a sparring partner, but I found that in my team. Yeah.
That's quite interesting to me, because I founded, I got into entrepreneurship like in March. I did my, how do you call it, Selbstständigkeit. Like I'm self-employed. And for me it's kind of difficult sometimes. I feel like I need a sparring partner, but I don't have like people who do kind of the same thing as me. They're doing also another business, but not like I'm doing marketing and branding. And yeah, so do you have like any advice for me? How to find a co-founder? Not a co-founder. I think I'm like doing it kind of good on my own, but to have like this exchange of opinion and someone who's like maybe more experienced and can help.
So there is definitely mentor networks, also mentor networks that are focusing on female entrepreneurs. There is Grace Accelerator, but I would also recommend you to start working out of a co-working space, because there's a lot of freelancers, self-employed people working from these spaces, and it just helps to share experiences. How do I file my taxes? And oh man, it's so hard to get a client. How do you do it? And just being part of this ecosystem, I think, definitely helps. Yeah.
Maybe just go on LinkedIn. I think you just have to be super bold. Go on LinkedIn and just post what you are looking for. And I think you're going to be so surprised like how many people are going to react and how people will refer you. So just either make a post or write them directly.
Okay, interesting advice.
Yeah, it works.
Have you done it?
Yes, all the time. I do it all the time for anything.
Yeah.
And it's amazing.
Okay, I have to talk to you.
Yeah.
just posing a question online, basically. Or there's also burn-in startup groups, I think, on Facebook. There's like different,
That's how I got here.
Don't go on Facebook.
Okay.
It's not working anymore.
I have another question. Going back to investment and funding, I have also a feeling that the women or female founders usually go directions sort of social entrepreneurship and these ideas that are doing sort of, you have an aim to do good, to help people, while a lot of the guys I know, they're all like numbers, millions, and I don't know, they do like these imaginary numbers, which also, but when it comes to, because I have never applied for any sort of investment or anything, how do you see it there? Is it harder when you come with these sort of soft, gentle ideas, you want to improve things? Or are there now more investors who actually also pay?
So I was receiving money, and I was also considered investable because I had experience before with Ruby Cup. But I have to share a sad fact that the amount that we raised now, 1.3 million, was only due to the fact that I now have a CFO, and he was really driving that. And we were always in a team, and it was good that I had a male on my side, that it was us together. And I mean, it's so hard to compare, you cannot A/B test. I think I would not have been able to raise that amount of money by myself, frankly speaking. It's again this issue about being a team and also having a male co-founder role on board.
There are also some questions in the back.
Yeah.
And my question was actually also going in the direction of raising funds as a single female founder, so I'm also a single female founder in the health tech sector, and also made the experience that like the discussion changes when you bring a male in the room of the investment committee, and so I would love to hear a little bit like more deep dive into how your experience was like with this fundraising round.
Yeah, so it's so hard for me to share because I only have this story about having the CFO male on board now that helped me to raise the funds. What I experienced beforehand was that one investor leads to the other. And I found my first investor in a co-working space. I think it could be a benefit to get in touch with Grace Accelerator. I know they have pitches at the end of every session where you are also being put in touch with investors. It's so hard for me to share advice on this.
Yeah,
so in my case, it came via the network. Like one investor was there, he was saying, oh, let's invest in this company, it's FemTech, it's telemedicine, it's an upcoming and growing and huge market. And then that investor had another contact, and so one leads to the other. I think this gentleman in the back, I'm sorry that I overlooked you, I think because of the lights.
No, but I had the same question about the fundings, if you were happy about the way how the crowdfunding took place, and if you faced obstacles by the local and federal authorities who were involved in this whole process. And the second question, because this is a very important issue which is not only in Germany but globally an issue also for the development aid. Do you also cooperate with the German Ministry of Development Aid, the BMZ, which is very much doing projects in Africa about gender and females component?
Yeah, so we received at Femna also investment from the Berliner Investitionsbank, IBB, and they were extremely supportive. And we now really have an investor circle where everybody has a different strength. It's amazing, they're super supportive. In terms of development agencies, we were working very closely with SIDA, the Swedish one, and they granted us 200,000 euros via their Innovations Against Poverty program, which we had to match. So the Swedish development agencies seem very, very forward-thinking. The Danish ministry was not that whole thing because they like to invest in big projects. So they support big NGOs like the GIZ, also the BNZ, the GIZ, they usually support bigger projects and not small ones because it's more efficient. So yeah, stick to the Swedes.
Oh, sorry, it's already answered. Thanks.
All right. So there is more time in the networking now to ask questions, get in touch, but also exchange between each other. Thank you very much for coming and enjoy the evening. And thank you very much. Maxie, wait, you get a present. I forgot your present.
Thank you so much for listening. It was, the first time I actually told my story in such great detail and so in such an intimate setting. So it's so nice that you guys were listening.
So to celebrate this, you get and also chocolate.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Yum, yum.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
So we'll switch on the music, get a drink. Happy networking.